So in this next video, we're going to be doing a dependent match pair test again. This time we're going to be using the p-value method. Okay, so it's still dependent sample, match pair. And with the p-value method, the three pieces you need is the null and alternative hypothesis. So that hasn't changed. Your first step is always finding the null and alternative. We're going to be looking at the alpha level and then the p-value. So a lot of this is going to be very similar to testing a claim about a mean using the t-test on your calculator. Okay? Because the rule with how to reject and fail to reject, that is the same. P-value is less than or equal to alpha, we're going to reject the null. P-value greater than or equal to alpha, we fail to reject the null. So again, a little less work than the critical value method. You won't need to draw the curve. You will need to have null alternative, show me your alpha level, show me your p-value, and then come up with the conclusion. So here's the example we're going to look at. A study was done to test the damage that the sun does to a person's skin. 20 individuals had their skin analyzed and rated from 1 to 100. 1 being bad skin, 100 being good skin. The 20 individuals were put into a sun for 3 hours each day with no sunscreen from 12 noon to 3 p.m. Their skin was rated again after a week. Does the sun lower your skin rating? Be 95% confident. So we're assuming all conditions are satisfied. We're assuming random sample. We're assuming that it's a normal distribution. So everything's satisfied for this to be a valid test. Our null and alternative, we have our null being mu before equal to mu after. So null is always going to be equal to. The mu before is greater than the mu after. Okay, so we're assuming that the sun is going to hurt your skin rating. Your sun is going to make it a lower skin rating. Now, since we are going to be 95% confident, that means our alpha level is going to be 0.05. Okay, so there's 2/3 of the pieces we need. We need our null and alternative. We have our alpha level of 0.05, and all that is pretty similar to what we did for a t-test when we were testing a claim about a mean for a single sample. So now let's go to the calculator to see what we have to do to get our p-value. Okay, so I have my list plugged in already. So we have L1 and L2. Okay, I'm going to quit out of here. And now we still need to use the difference, just like we did for the critical value method. We need to find the difference of the two lists. So I'm going to do L1 minus L2 store into L3. And when I hit enter, that gives you my list on the bottom. And if I go back to my lists, now an L3 is the difference. It did all the subtraction for me. I'm going to quit out of it again. Now I'm going to go to test. Stat, go over to test. I'm going to go down to t-test. And I want my data selected because since I have my data in L3, that's what we're going to be using. So I'm going to go down. I'm going to make sure my null and alternative. Now again, this is where thinking about the difference between the null before and the null after. If they were equal and we subtracted them from each other, we would get a 0. So that's the value we're going to plug in here. For every time for a match pair test, when you're using the t-test, you're going to plug 0 in for your null. We're going to be looking at L3. Frequency, I'm just going to leave it 1 or leave it blank. And we had before being greater than after. So I'm going to have the greater than symbol highlighted. So again, we have the null being 0. L3 was our difference list. And now our greater than symbols highlighted. I'm going to scroll on down to calculate and hit enter. And we can see here that 8.85100 e to the negative 4. That's scientific notation. It's a very, very small value. It ends up being 0.000885. So we're just going to round that to 0. So now we have our p-value at 0. We have our alpha level. So we're going to assume that p-value, we're not going to assume, we're just looking at it and saying p-value is less than our alpha level. When p-value is less, we are going to reject the null. So if I then write out a conclusion, we are rejecting the null, so we side with the alternative. There is evidence that being in the sun does lower your skin rating. Okay, so that's what I would have as an example of a conclusion. Again, this was because my p-value was less than alpha.